Let's talk about how to remove Bank of America collections from your credit. And so here's an overview you need to pay attention to. So when we talk about Bank of America collections on your credit report, you have to understand those collections can stay on your credit report for a long time if you don't take action. And Bank of America collections, when they actually show up on your credit report, this collections can be a debt collection company. In other words, Bank of America collections can be represented as a debt collection company. And it's one of those things where you basically have a Bank of America selling your debt to a third party, or just say, you know what, I'm going to collect myself. Okay, so it's one of those things where you have to understand that it's part of it's a strategy, and the bank has to always see what's the best system for it when it comes to collection. And so when we talk about Bank of America collections, this can come from a third party. It can be a collection agency. In other words, not the bank itself, but a collection agency that actually purchased the debt from the original creditor, which can be a credit card or loan company. And usually this means they actually paid pennies on the dollar, sometimes 1/10 of the original cost to buy this debt. In other cases, they may not own the debt themselves, instead being paid to collect on behalf of another company. So you got to really have a clear idea whom you are dealing with, okay? And so this company may attempt to communicate with you via mail or phone calls demanding payment. Even worse, a collections account now appears on your credit report. And so when you have an account like this can hurt your scores and chances to get approved for a loan or other important financial event. So it's one of those things where you really want to get this account removed as soon as possible. But you got to have the right strategy, and timing plays an important role. And so Bank of America collections can hurt your credit score, that's for sure, because any derogatory mark under its statute of limitation may severely impact your credit score. So a collections account is no different, okay? And what we're talking about having an impact that can go all the way to 100 points of your credit score. So 100 points, that's really huge, especially if your credit score was not high to start with. So you want to get this Bank of America collections off your credit score, your credit report, as soon as possible. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Now let's talk about how to remove Bank of America collections from your credit report. I think I've already established that you need to know the nature of the person collecting. I mean, not the person, the entity attempting to collect debt from you, right? Is it Bank of America, the bank itself? Is it a third party to which the bank sold your debt to? Or is it a middleman, an intermediary, right? So you got to have a clear idea. So removing Bank of America collections from your credit report may be possible if any information on the account is incorrect, errored, or fraudulent, and is not or cannot be fixed in an appropriate amount of time. Let me repeat that. This is really important. Removing Bank of America collections from your credit report may be possible if any information on the account itself, right, is either incorrect, mistaken, or fraudulent, and is not or cannot be fixed in an appropriate amount of time. So it's one of those things where, a lot of studies actually have shown that 79 to 85% of credit reports contain mistakes or serious errors. So it's one of those things where you want to really, again, you want to ascertain the validity of the data. So to be eligible to remove Bank of America collections from your credit report, you typically need to meet the following requirements. Any information on the account is incorrect. I mean, factually and also historically. So incorrect, in other words, like let's say they're saying that you actually borrowed from Bank of America in 2021, whereas in 2021 you were not even 21 years old. Like you were like 16 years of age. So that's incorrect. If any information on the account is error means mistaken, and incorrect, there is a slight distinction between incorrect and mistaken. If any information on the account is fraudulent, so if you suspect fraud, this could actually be ground for invalidation. And if the information cannot is not fixed within an appropriate amount of time, 30 days to 90 days, depending on the statute of limitation, or cannot be fixed in that amount of time, then you can remove this collections. Totally possible. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to remove Bank of America collections from your credit reports. So, when we talk about removing Bank of America collections from your credit report, you need to really ascertain again the validity of the debt collection agency. Now, is Bank of America Collections a debt collection agency? The answer depends on what's on your credit report, right? So, Bank of America Collections can be either a debt collection agency, can be the Bank of America, the bank itself, so Bank of America itself, asking you to pay off whatever you owe them, or any other party in between. It can be a third party, it can be a middleman, it can be an intermediary. A lot of things happen. Okay, so Bank of America, if you ascertain that Bank of America Collections is a debt collection agency, that means that you have to really act differently. In that case, they buy debt from a number of different creditors that no longer wish to attempt to collect the amount themselves, also known as a charge-off. And it's one of those things where you have to really understand if the debt in question is still within its statute of limitation or outside of it. It's one of those things where you have to really ascertain the debt itself. Now, should you pay for a delete with Bank of America Collections? Well, it really depends on the amount. It depends on your own resources, right? It depends on your budget. Depends also depends also on the statute of limitations. So paying off Bank of America Collections to have credit bureaus deleted from your reports seems ideal. Now, there is a problem though. Paying a debt in collections changes your credit report status from unpaid to paid. The result, your collections still appears on your report for 7 years from the date of first delinquency. So this means what? Your credit is still affected. So paying it off doesn't mean that you are off the hook, right? So that's what you got to really see whether or not it's really worth it. In other words, you are able to be off the hook simply because you pay for a delay. And it's one of those things where you have to see how it really impacts your credit score down the road. Because why pay for something if it doesn't really significantly affect your credit score? So you got to really think strategically before paying off any amount for that matter. So that's really important. This is part of the strategic thinking you got to have. Another possibility is negotiation. So we are talking about negotiating a settlement with Bank of America Collections. And again, this is kind of similar to what I said earlier. So settling your debt with Bank of America Collections may help your score, but it may also hurt your score. So the answer really depends on many variables. You may also not have to pay at all. And if any issues with the account exist, you may have it removed altogether and never have to hear from them again. So in terms of a negotiation, it really depends upon your situation. So one thing I want to say here is that there is a better path to a good result. You can work with a company that is able to review this accounts for you. And if any issues with the account exist, you may have it removed and altogether. And there are cases where Bank of America Collections can be legit, fake, or a scam. I mean, you never know. I mean, Bank of America Collections is a legitimate company in most cases. But what if the America is written with a K? What if the bank, the word bank is written with a C? So Bank of America is written with a K at the end. Bank is written with a K at the end, and America with the C. But if you see a slight changes, I mean, you never know when it comes to identity theft and credit score theft. You never know. So, it is Bank of America Collections is a legitimate company, but you want to really double check. Okay, it's one of those things where you want to double check. And so, if for any reason Bank of America Collections continues to call and attempt to collect the debt, the best thing you can do is ignore their calls and speak with the company they can help you get it removed. I mean, you have companies that specialize in those things, and they can help you actually deal with this type of situations. And one thing you have to keep in mind: how much do you owe? Right? How much are we talking about? Are we talking about $1,000, or are we talking about $100,000? Because the whole thing is that you have to see whether you can do it yourself, or it's better to actually outsource the whole thing to a third party. I mean, having a third party sort of take care of a situations for you can really help you in the long run versus you trying to really, deal with this anxiety yourself. Because those calls can be really can be disruptive. In most, I mean, they're meant to be disruptive, and so you want to see what really works for you. Boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to remove Bank of America collections from your credit report. Now let's talk about a risk that really may exist depending on the amount. That risk is low, but it does exist. If you have a large amount, yes. So will Bank of America collections try suing you or garnishing your wages? Depends. Going back to what I said a little earlier, if you owe $1,000 versus $100,000, it's very unlikely that Bank of America collections. Now, there is a possibility that Bank of America collections can try to sue you or even garnish your wages. The law actually allows that, but it really depends on the amount that you owe them. So if we're talking about $1,000, they're not going to sue you or attempt to garnish your wages because the wage garnishment sort of process is a lengthy one. And generally, it's you want to have an authority. It can be a state or county or the federal government that can try to garnish your wages. But again, if we're talking about $100,000, then yes, the law allows the possibility to actually have your wages garnished. Okay, so it's very unlikely that Bank of America collections will decide to sue. In rare cases, it may happen, but this is not the norm. And state and federal laws have limits or exemptions, as they call them, that apply to a bank and wage garnishments. So it's one of those things where you want to always contact, especially to have more information, or you can just let us know in the comment section. Let us know your situation, and certainly somebody will get back to you and sort of contextualize everything for you. Okay. Now, is there a possibility of having Bank of America collections accepting a goodwill letter to remove your collection or charge off? No, because see, the thing is that when they have a Bank of America collection, let's say when they have a collections note on your credit report, that's a sign of pressure, and they want to keep it that way. They want you to really pay them as much as possible. But if they get a goodwill letter from you, they may actually may reduce their negotiating hand. Okay, so it's one of those things where, based on our experience, Bank of America does not accept goodwill letters to remove collection accounts or charge-offs, and this is actually typical for most collection companies. Okay, and it's one of those things where, again, we are speaking about how much you really owe, right? So when you talk about Bank of America collections on your credit report, how much are we talking about? The magnitude of the debt really will trigger a series of events, and it's just better to actually see which one is better for you, depending on how much you really owe in the end. And it's one of those things where every situation is different, and you have to decide on a case-by-case basis. So let us know in the comment section, and we'll certainly get back to you for more information. Now, when we talk about who does Bank of America collections collect for, I mean, I think I've already answered that question, right? It really depends. Bank of America collections can collect for generally three types of entities. They can collect for the bank itself, so Bank of America itself. They can collect for a variety of lending companies called creditors, in case Bank of America sold your debt to other parties. And they can collect also for, I mean, they can be a middleman, right? So these are constantly changing, and typically collection agencies, including Bank of America collections, do not share publicly who they buy from. So it's one of those things where you have to see which applies to your situation. And what we have seen in our experience is that It really depends on, it's on a case by case basis. So, what are your rights when it comes to Bank of America? Like when you deal with Bank of America collections, what are your rights? Well, you have the right to dispute any debt of yours that Bank of America collections is trying to collect. So, Bank of America collections is actually governed by the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act, or FDCPA, and also the FCRA, so the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So while this act may seem very complicated, they provide actually a great deal of power to you as a borrower if you know how to use it. So it's one of those things where you have to really either talk to a specialist to kind of help you out, because even though the law itself is pretty clear, the process of implementing that law can be a little complicated. So it's one of those things where you have to always contact a specialist to kind of help you out. So it's the bottom line here for you is to know exactly what works and what doesn't work. And it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, what works is basically the fact that you can actually pay a few cents on the dollar. I mean, you may even not have to pay the full amount. It really depends on how much you owe. You know, and it's one of those things where the earlier you start the process, the better. And it's one of those things where also you have to see what works for you. I mean, what works in your specific case, and what works for you, what works in this case may not apply across the board. So again, let us know in the comment section if you have questions. We'll certainly study your situation and see exactly which one applies, which one will apply to your case, so to speak. The all the contact information for Bank of America collections. I mean, they actually basically they don't have a phone number and they do not want you to call them. But the thing is, when they reach out to you, it's better to tell them to send you a written note. That way you keep some kind of contextual proof, right? Because the bottom line is you do not want to rely only on phone calls. I mean, they will be calling you at a certain time, but you want to really ask them to stop calling you and to contact you via written correspondence. And so that's really good. And the thing is that when we talk about this collection agency, you may not have to pay them at all if you actually know your rights under the FDCPA or FCRA. And so it's one of those things where always you want to enlist the help of a professional who can really help you out. Okay. And also, there is a possibility where you may have to settle the debt. That's totally possible. If for any reason you think your finances are better and you want to settle the debt, it's totally possible to actually get things done the proper way. But it's just a lot better in those circumstances to actually give in, like, you want to entrust the whole file to a credit repair company that can really help you out, because they have the methodology, they have the experience, they have the history of dealing with with this kind of processes. That way, you are in good hands, and that's what you want anyway. You do not want to actually to give the information to a third party who may not be as experienced in dealing with these kinds of issues. So, and also one thing I need to say also is that when we talk about removing Bank of America collections from your report, you can do it today. You can do it today. You can talk to a credit repair company. You can do it yourself. If the amount is not really high, you can do it yourself. I mean, that's totally possible. You can actually you can send them a letter. You can have them send you a letter, or you can just contact the a credit report. I mean, a credit report agency, and ask them to remove that entry. Because if you have determined that the data is not valid, in other words, you never really owed anything to anybody called Bank of America Collections, then basically you can actually have a TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax actually remove the data from the record, and they have to do it. I mean, by law, they have to do this, because otherwise you can actually sue them and win. And win not just in terms of not paying the debt, but also, sorry. So, but also making sure that they're not really bothering you again in the future. So it's one of those things where you have to really start early, and you have to see if the debt itself is valid, and also if any information is within the statute of limitations. So it's one of those things where bottom line is you want to really enlist the help of a professional, or do it yourself, or even ask us in the comment section and we'll certainly get back to you. Not a problem. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let me do a quick recap into this conversation. I just talked to you about how to remove Bank of America collections from your credit report, and I talked to you about the whole topic. And if you have any question, please let us know in the comment section. And my voice was not the best today, and I really appreciated your understanding. And thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.